is Andy Lipton, and welcome to Leading the Break. This segment features short Q&As that I had with all 12 WNBA coaches this past 2024 season regarding analytics and statistics. For an extended conversation that I had with Coach Curt Miller, who's now the general manager of the Dallas Wings, please watch our segment regarding statistics and analytics with just Curt. Hey, when you're preparing for an opponent, what are the three most important statistical measures that are important? That are important to you, and why so?
Three. It's probably not three, but I'll try to do three. I think with the game, the way the game is now, a lot of our game planning and stuff, it goes around, who a team's best shooters are. Taking the case of New York, they have a bunch of good shooters and a couple exceptional shooters, and so you have to account for that. Probably on another team, who gets to the rim, who gets fouled. You're trying to account for that. And I think at the other end of the floor, kind of what does a team tend to give up once you have a sizable, body of work, is what are the type of shots the team gives up? And usually that leads to more questions like, why do they give those shots up? Or what are they doing to take a certain shot away? So a lot of times those starting points generate more questions than you're trying to dive a little deeper.
When you prepare for an opponent, what are the three most important statistical measures that you look at?
First of all, from a team defensive standpoint, we want to make sure that we're forcing teams into low percentage shots. So we'll look at, where are their most high percentage looks as a team? Where are their most high percentage looks as individuals? How can we force them into lower percentage shots? How can we get the players that we want taking shots to take shots? As far as defensive game planning, we'll look at tendencies and field goal percentages and looking at the numbers in a little bit of a deeper dive now that there are so many analytics available. The second thing for us is, and this isn't necessarily a number standpoint, but looking to see where we can get high percentage looks for our players on the offensive end. What are some of the actions that teams have trouble defending? Who do we want to put in the actions? Who do we want to get shots and when and where? So we really take a deep dive into being strategic about those things. It makes it a little bit easier for us that we have a veteran group that we can talk through that. And then at the end of the day, it comes down to being disciplined enough to execute your schemes on defense, to finding ways to stay in flow and get high percentage looks on offense. And then you got to make shots. And the rebounding battle. We were not a good rebounding team a year ago. We've got to be better in that area. And so that's something that we'll continue to look at.
When you're preparing for an opponent, obviously you're looking at a lot of statistical information. What are the three most important measurements that you kind of think are important? And how predictive are they, given that the season is kind of new?
Only three. In particularly with New York, the way in which they use a three-point line. They are JJ and Stu are shooting at a high clip. Sabrina hasn't found her groove yet, and just knowing that they're deadly there. Amy is always steady. What they do defensively to teams because of their length, it's not overly aggressive, but it's just altering shots, blocking shots. They're big and they're able to do a lot of things defensively. And I'll just go for us as another side is our turnovers. We're turning the ball over way too much, giving our opponents almost 30 points off of our turnovers. And just not being, last night, was that last night? Yeah, we take 6 more shots than Washington. And you think about the 20 turnovers that we created. Those were opportunities that we're missing to have proper shots on goal. So I'll say those that stick out to me right now.
When you're preparing for an opponent and you're looking at the shooting statistics of any particular player, can you get as granular as breaking it out by defender, defensive scheme? And how far back do you go in looking at the data?
Well, we just, as a league, just got to deal with Second Spectrum. So now we're starting to have more access to analytics. Sometimes I love analytics, sometimes I hate them. I think what analytics doesn't always tell you is just the juice behind the scheme. You know, whether that be offensively or defensively, it doesn't take into account sometimes the little things. And although we're getting more access to it as a league, you know, like last year, you know, I wanted some stuff on our pick and roll defense. Well, it's not like we have a staff of 20 people. In the NBA, you just have hands that are always there and around. It's a lot of work for 3 or 4 people to get done. And there's other things that we're charting. So now, you know, that we have access to more analytics, I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be interesting. And of course, as a coach, we only use them in our favor to prove our points. So
You get the same statistical measurements and analytical information that you got in the NBA? And if not, what are the things you're missing that you would like to get?
No, yeah, you know, numbers are a big part of this game. Sometimes you can get too much. But no, we've, like I said, talked about a little bit, our front office. Nick has done a good job of filling out our staff. You know, we're building an analytic group. We've got a guy that has been around the NBA and WNBA for some time. And so Preston is sending us more numbers. Olivia's sending us more numbers than we've ever dreamed of. So we're definitely getting everything that we need here. I'm sure the players will tell you the same when I'm hitting them with those numbers.
Can you give me 3 statistical measures, whether individual or team, that are important to you that the average fan might not be aware of?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that we chart, that's strategic. I can't say that one. We do chart obviously free throws. You know, we want to go to the free throw line more than the other team attempts. Another one, something that's simple. We want the other team to call the first timeout, you know, in each quarter. Another one is just deflections. We talk about that a lot, trying to disrupt, and we call it stealing the other team's practice time away, you know, because they're working on their offenses like we are, and they're wanting to go into their counters and go with flow, and we want to be that speed bump along the way.
When you're evaluating any particular player's defensive abilities, how much do you rely on your eyeballs versus statistics? And what statistics, if any, are most predictive of that player's abilities?
Yeah, I would say that it's always a combination of whether it's offense or defense. I mean, the eye test is very dangerous because we go out there sometimes and our eyes tell us maybe there's a certain way that a player moves on the court. Could be a certain level of athleticism, could be a certain level of you know, maybe length, you know, to them. I think length is an important physical quote metric. I do think that statistically, you know, the RSB, the rebound, steal, blocks, I think, you know, when you're projecting a collegiate athlete, I think that's of paramount importance. It shows your ability to exist on a stage with some terrific athletes. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, there's a lot of things we do analytic model wise. I think it's one of the hardest things to measure analytically. There's a lot that's talked about with that in terms of, you know, what are the best ways, you know, if some of these defensive ratings, et cetera, are too dependent upon a team's defensive success. So peeling away a team's defense and kind of seeing what you have with a player. I think for me, the eye test tells me, you know, how hard do they play? What's their energy on the basketball? What's their ability to impact, being able to make passes either, you know, to the player that they're guarding, or if they're guarding someone, what is their interest in it? Certainly impacting in the way of statistics that we measure defensive player of the year by, you know, the rebounds and the steals and the blocks will be a factor in there somewhere.
How about in terms of help defense? Can you measure that statistically?
No, that's your eyeball, man. That's they're in the right spot or they're late all the time, you know, and that's a real translatable. That's a real trend. They don't do it in college. They're probably not doing that in the pros. It's going to be hard work to get them to do that. But, you know, I think in terms of how you can impact, that's a way to impact defensive rating. You know, for us, for example, if our low defender isn't where they need to be, then we're not going to get the rim protection. They're going to get much easier shots out of that. And, that will change your defensive rating for sure.
I think analytics and how we use them. We were able to hire a guy full-time this year on our staff who is an analytics guy for us. The league puts out a lot of good information, but Billy's able to take that and create all these other engines to help us, just analyze the game differently. It's a huge tool. I mean, it is a huge tool for the players. You can break things down. Second Spectrum gives us an opportunity to break things down, to how many dribbles someone takes from some part of the floor. I mean, it's incredible. And you can use that to help players understand, where they're playing, where they're doing things well, where they need to work, for the team as well. I mean, it's just so much information, great information that can be used from the analytics.
Can you share maybe 3, what I'll call advanced analytics that maybe the average fan wouldn't be aware of?
Yeah, I think, one of the basic ones is PPP. So points per possession now. So when you look at offensive buckets within our playbook, so we have different patterns and different plays, we analyze those plays and those buckets of plays on maybe points per possession. And so what is the outcome when we're using that play? What is it? And so, a good number for reference is something over 1.0. Like, are you getting, 1.0 points per possession every time you call that play? Would analyze it as something that can be effective. If it gets under 1.0, you got to start to look at why is this play ineffective? That is a simple one. There's so many, but for us, we're a young building team that's had a ton of injuries, so our continuity and chemistry is still building, and therefore we have lots of turnovers. So analytically, advanced analytics, we look at a lot of turnover data and why and when and where we're turning the ball over. Ironically, we're a team in specific LA right now, we're turning the ball over in the first 6 seconds of the shot clock. So, that's an advanced analytic that's discussed with our team. Like, why are we making mistakes very, very early in the shot clock? What are those trends? So that's an analytic that maybe, like people like, gosh, you got to stop turning the ball over. Well, we just don't go into the locker room anymore and say, we got to stop turning the ball over. We try to tell our team, this is when we're turning it over, and why are we turning it over, and can we get that corrected? So, everybody that's the keyboard warriors at home going, do they ever talk about turnovers? Not only do we talk about turnovers, but we talk about turnovers in a very specific way.
When you look at stats and advanced analytics, what are the 3 most important things that stand out about your team?
Good question. We started the season, thinking or knowing how much talent we had. So moving the ball and being able to spread things across the board was going to be really, really important to us. And so our assists, being last in the league is a big thing. So we're still trying to work our way up to improving that. I think that's big. I think, our shooting percentages, that's another one that's really tough where we have to get those up. And I think that happens whenever, you get opportunities to get cleaner shots. And so those are 2 things that really stands out. And then obviously from how we've played the last 2 years, our pace, which is really important for us to kind of work on improving and getting better. But I like the way that we get to the free throw line. I think that's something that we do really well. So having an attack mentality is really important for us because those are easy scoring opportunities for us. So those are some things that stick out.
The increased reliance on advanced analytics. When you coach a game, do you watch the game differently than you did years ago? And when you prepare for an opponent, what are the 3 most important advanced metrics that you look at?
Yeah, look, obviously Second Spectrum's a beauty that we have now. We've got a guy that puts a lot of nice data for me together. So when you put together game plans, you're looking at that, what's their PP, points per possession, and pick and rolls as a, handle as a roller, and you're coming up with the game plan. I think that's a part of it. So they're important for us too. We look at, more about pick and roll coverages, and that's mostly what we look at in that regard here. Right hand, left hand, what happens there, if they're in a crowd or not in a crowd. There's so much data out there. I don't want it all because it would make me go a little crazy. I know what I need, just with the know your personnel, individually what they want to do, taking away their strengths. And then I also look at ourselves, because how are they going to defend us? Now, obviously Minnesota is very structure driven. They're going to do the same thing, but it's how can we exploit that? But the data has allowed, I think every team just gives you more information to make, good decisions.
With the increased reliance on, advanced analytics, when you coach a game, do you see the game differently than you did years ago because of that? And when you evaluate your opponent, what are the three most important analytical measures you look at?
You have to fight me with analytics. I'm one you have to really fight. Because I'm one who believes in an all-around game. And a lot of times you see, when you take a look at analytics, it speaks a lot about behind the arc. I talk about the all-around game. That's what I've been successful with. That's what I believe is successful. I do believe that analytics has an incredible place, especially when you take a look at numbers of units playing together. I take a look at that. I take a look at numbers where you're shooting the ball from and how successful you are in those areas. Take a look at numbers as a team. We take a look at those things, of course, and it matters. Those things do matter. But as an all-around player, I really don't pay too much attention to the analytics because I believe in not being a predictable athlete. I believe in being an unpredictable athlete.